Time now for the press review with Alison Sargent. Good to see you, Alison.
You too, Delano.
You're starting out here in France, where the question of nuclear energy is dominating many of the front pages today.
That's right, and that's because Emmanuel Macron is announcing new funding for the nuclear sector as part of this larger investment plan that he is unveiling this Tuesday. Nuclear energy, France still believes in it. That's the front page headline from a Catholic paper, La Croix, today. The paper reminds us that Emmanuel Macron has expressed support for nuclear energy in the past, since he sees it as both a reliable and a green energy source, since it has no direct carbon emissions. Even if France believes in nuclear energy still, though, the European Union is divided. The paper points out that Germany and Belgium, for example, have already decided to phase out nuclear energy, even if that means that it may take those countries longer to become carbon neutral.
So Europe is divided, but so is France.
Yeah, we read in Le Parisien that about 60% of people in France are in favor of nuclear energy, so just a slim majority. The paper writes that the polarizing topic is going to be a major issue in the upcoming presidential election. Emmanuel Macron, Marine Le Pen, and the main candidates on the right are all in favor of nuclear energy. The Greens, though, and the far left do want to phase it out. They're concerned about seeing another major accident like Fukushima. They're also worried about how to manage nuclear waste. Still, though, according to the paper's cartoonist Ranson, people might end up voting with their wallets, given that energy prices have been soaring. In this cartoon, the environmentalist is saying, "What, you support nuclear energy, but it will destroy the planet?" And this man responds, "Well, we're hoping the end of the world will come before the next electricity bill."
Indeed. It's a tough one. Now, we're moving to the U.S. next, where papers are continuing to follow reactions to a controversial Netflix show by comedian Dave Chappelle.
Yeah, this show has been criticized for jokes that Dave Chappelle makes about gay and trans people. It's worth pointing out that it is not the first time that Dave Chappelle has been accused of homophobia and transphobia, and there have been calls for Netflix to remove the show. But as we read here in Variety, Netflix is standing by the comedian. The company's co-CEO sent an internal memo to employees saying that they are committed to supporting creative freedom, and that means there will always be content on Netflix that some people believe is harmful. Now, a lot of the jokes focus on so-called cancel culture. For example, Chappelle says, "In our country, you can shoot and kill a black person, but you better not hurt a gay person's feelings." Now, many have pointed out that that actually goes beyond hurt feelings, because gay and trans people are also the target of physical violence in the United States. And many black queer people, like the poet Saeed Jones, who writes here for GQ, they've been pointing out that Dave Chappelle is pretending like the LGBTQ community is predominantly white when that's not the case. As both a black man and a gay man, Jones, the writer here, says that he used to love Dave Chappelle, but found himself unable to watch this latest show. He writes that laughter is meant to help us shake ourselves free, but instead he felt like he was being stabbed in the back and asked not to bleed.
Wow. The next story has to do with gender representation. At this year's Nobel Prizes, many of the awards going to men, with just one for a woman.
That's right, Dylan. Just one out of the 13 winners was a woman. That was journalist Maria Ressa, who was one of the winners of the Nobel Peace Prize. Bloomberg points out that, just one out of 13 laureates was a woman, and that actually is better, believe it or not, than in 2016 or 2017, when no woman won the award at all. Yeah. Bloomberg has been crunching the numbers, and since 1901, just 58 women have won a Nobel Prize. That compares to 885 men. Now, despite those numbers, the head of the Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences has ruled out gender or ethnicity quotas. Goran Hansson says that while they've discussed having quotas, they fear that it would then be considered that those laureates got the prize because they are women, not simply because they are the best. Instead, he said that they do want to make sure that they have more female scientists invited to nominate recipients and also to participate on committees, which could help lead to more women winning. But he also said society really needs to work to change its attitudes about women going into the sciences so that there are more women in those fields making discoveries that can then win awards.
And finally, from you, Alison, on a lighter note, an elk in Colorado who had a tire removed from around its neck after 2 years.
Yeah, it's crazy to think of this elk walking around in the wild with a tire around its neck for 2 years. It was first spotted back in 2019. The bad news, Delano, is that he lost his antlers in the removal process. Wildlife officials were unable to cut through the tire's steel band in the middle, and so they were forced to cut off the elk's antlers to slip it over its head. Altogether, though, that means the elk is now 16 kilograms lighter because he lost both the tire and the antlers. The neck, the wildlife officials said, is actually in good condition despite being chafed at by that tire, so that's good news too. And for those who are worried, the elk's antlers will grow back next year. They fall off and regrow every year, so at least all is well that ends well. But this story is sort of your daily reminder that everything humans leave lying around does end up impacting animals.
Seriously. Thank you very much for that, Alison. Alison Sargent there with the press review.